Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to our session on applying for graduate school in US. This webinar is organized by graduate student community here at the University of Oklahoma, specially aimed at the student at Gallaudet College of Engineering and Mewburn College of Art and Energy. Uh, as I was introducing myself, I am Himadri Sengupta, a PhD candidate in Industrial and Systems Engineering, and I will be one of the presenters today. Alongside me, we have Jason Beatty, Luis Vazquez, and our faculty mentor, Professor Farooq Misri. Together, we will be sharing our insights to help you to navigate the grad school application process. Please remember to fill out the sign-up sheet for attendance, which Rachel gave in the chat. Uh, Mainly today, we will discuss about the essentials of applying to grad school, starting with the reason why pursuing in graduate degree can open the door for your career and personal growth. We will also then dive into creating a competitive application covering the funding options, choosing between master's or PhD, and also finding the right program as well. We will also share the tips on crafting and tailoring the applications and also tailoring the statement of purpose and making your application stand out for sure. Finally, we will explain how the GSC can support you by reviewing our applications and offering this. So, my academic journey began in Bangladesh, where I studied my engineering degree at Khulna University of Engineering and Technology. Early on, I was driving by the simple questions of how can engineering make the real impact on the communities. These questions then led me to also the University of Oklahoma, where I completed my master's, and now I'm pursuing my PhD in industrial engineering. My research here is focused on resilience, especially the structural resilience that help the communities withstand natural hazards like flooding, tsunami, by combining the diverse knowledge of engineering, social science, and also the data science. It's challenging, but the idea that this work could make the community safer for all of us. Through this journey, I learned some powerful lessons. Firstly, I will talk about my resilience and adaptability. So these are essentials. Balancing life and research isn't always easy, but the thing is, staying focused and flexible definitely helped a lot. And I have also learned the value of interdisciplinary collaborations throughout my research. Working alongside with experts from different fields, because my research is so much multidisciplinary, I learned a lot. Uh, and also, I have realized the importance of thinking long term. Quick fixes that doesn't help always that much. So, to make the impactful research, we need the solution that lasts. And I will say, so what keep me going is it's the idea that my work can truly make the difference in the community. Knowing that my research has potential to help the community in real life, and I'm also passionate about mentoring students as well, seeing them grow and develop the solutions that have the potential to save life in inspiring and all. And here I see my research influencing policies and decision. I feel a deep sense of purpose knowing that my work contribute to the larger mission as my research is getting implemented for the use of community right now. And if I could share some advice, it would be this: stay definitely curious and resilient, because I feel like curiosity is the most important thing to learn new things, and also embrace challenges as learning opportunities. Like you have to push the boundaries, don't be afraid to explore new ideas and take bold step towards making an impact. And above all, remember that as I was mentioning, like talking with everyone, collaboration is the key factor. When we work together, we create solutions that make innovative and powerful than anything we could achieve alone. And thank you for letting me sharing my story. So I will now move to my friend Jason Betty.
Hi, my name is Jason Beatty. I'm a lead mechanical engineer for Tinker Air Force Base, and I recently started my journey on getting my master's back in 2023. So, a little history about me. In 2010, I got my undergrad in mechanical engineering here at University of Oklahoma, and soon got hired and started working as a mechanical engineer at Tinker Air Force Base, and also at the same time got married, started a family 1 week, literally 1 week right when I started my job. Got married and started a family. Um, Soon after a few years, as you can see, working as a mechanical engineer, I became the lead mechanical engineer at Tinker Aerospace. And in between that time, between being just a regular engineer and becoming the lead, I never really thought too much about getting my master's at all. Always thought about getting my professional engineering license, which I finally did a few years after I got, a few years later after I became the lead. But really, when I became the lead, I really started thinking about getting my master's. And I was working at it. I was starting to apply, but unfortunately, having a family and being the executor of my father's estate, I had to take that over. I had to take over my entire father's estate in 2018. At the same time, I became the lead, and so that really pushed off my time that I wanted to get my master's. And so I took care of his estate, and while I was taking care of his estate, I ended up buying a farm. And again, more stuff to do in my family. So I bought a farm, expanded my family some, and just kept on pushing off the masters. Just kept on doing it. But I finally was able to hunker down, after COVID and all that, and I decided, okay, I'm doing it. I'm going to get my master's. And so fall of 2023, I started my journey for my master's. My biggest motivation really was to further my professional career. I wanted to go into position at Tinker that's non-supervisor position, but it's one of the top mechanical engineering positions out there, and I really wanted to do that. Also, I'm going to retire at an early age from Tinker from the DoD, and so when I retire from there, I'll still have a lot of life left. I'm want to do something later, and so getting my master's would also help me diversify my opportunities on what I could do later because I really thought about teaching also. And I do plan after I retire from Tinker is to start teaching in some capacity because I was a TA when I was an undergrad and I really did enjoy that. And so really the biggest thing, if you're a person in my shoes, you have a family, and I understand, getting that undergrad, get that degree, get that bachelor's, get that job to help start supporting your family. I completely understand it because that's what I did. But really, think about it, and if you have a family, bring them into it, and tell them, hey, you want to get your graduate degree, and bring them in and help them understand the time that you need to dedicate to it, and make sure everybody understands that, and make sure everybody agrees to that, and because that's very important, and they will help you a lot. They're gonna have to help you a lot to get through this, especially when you have you got a family, you have things to take care of, like I do. Um, and really, I wish I would have started a lot sooner. I wish I would have started my master's program soon after I got my job, honestly. When I was a young family, 15 years ago, I really wish I would have started thinking about doing my master's program towards the end of my undergrad career, and then also got into it after I got my job. Made it a lot easier on me because now got a family and a lot of stuff to take care of. But I'm getting it done. And so if you if you start after you get a job, don't rush into it. Don't think, oh, I gotta take 3 classes or I gotta hurry up and get this done. If you're going into it after you get a job, take your time. But again, my biggest advice is to start as early as possible from your undergrad degree because it makes it a lot easier. You don't have to learn to become a student again. That's the hardest part. I'm 40 years old and I have to learn to become a student again. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Luis Vasquez. So my academic journey began at Northeastern State University, where I did my bachelor's in computer science, and then my minor in mathematics. I always knew I wanted to go to graduate school. I just wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, um, specifically in terms of research. And so I applied to three different graduate schools. Ended up deciding on coming to the University of Oklahoma, where I'm now doing my master's in computer science, and my research focus is in explainable machine learning. And so, like briefly, this involves, right? So I'm sure most of you are familiar with some, large language models like ChatGPT. And so these models are often very complex and can be black boxes. And so my research is focus is on trying to open this black box, trying to make it more understandable, and of course, having building that trust that we have with the models. But then moving on, so some, just some lessons overall that I've learned throughout my academic journey. I think first and foremost, staying disciplined, persistent, especially during, difficulties and challenges that will, just naturally arise. Um, Another thing is being, time management, I think is very critical. I mean, this is something that I still have, not perfected, but I think having good time management skills to balance, your coursework, your life, extracurriculars is something that's very, very important. And then lastly, of course, is just building relationships, right? Building relationships with your peers, with your professors, or just professionals can really open up opportunities that you may not expect. I think for me, like pretty much every single internship or like opportunity that I've had has been through, some relationship that I've had. So I think making sure that you build your network is very important. Moving on to, what makes me happy, why I do what I do. First of all, I really like the cross-disciplinary research that I'm able to do. It helps me expand my knowledge. So currently I'm working at a Valdez laboratory, which is a chemistry lab actually. And so it's really nice to see this cross-disciplinary research that we conduct. And then, off of that point, just seeing how my research is able to impact, research in other disciplines. Again, like in chemistry, in where I work at, seeing how the research that I do in machine learning is able to, further the research in another discipline. And then lastly, guiding others on their paths and then seeing them succeed and flourish is something that really is fulfilling to me, especially I think more so given the fact that, growing up, especially during my early academic journey, I wish I would have had a little bit more of that guidance. And so because of it, I didn't necessarily, I, would like to help others that also did not. Um, and then some tips for embarking on your journey. I think first is having this strong support network, whether it be your friends, whether it be your family, or even, a community like us, like the graduate student community here at OU. Just having that strong community that you're able to lean on definitely goes a long way. And then, realizing that not everything will go as planned and being flexible. When I started at Northeastern State, I was, doing English and was thinking about becoming an English teacher. Um, and, now I'm doing my master's in computer science. So I think just being flexible and realizing that, you never know where life is going to take you and, different paths that can open up. And then lastly, just having time for personal interests to avoid burnout and then just for overall well-being. I think it's something is very important as well and something that I know it can be difficult, especially when you have a lot of things going on. But even just a little bit of time, dedicating a little bit of time each week or every time you can to, things outside of, just, your academics or your professional life can definitely help. But with that, yeah, it was just a little bit about me, and I'll give it over now to Dr. Mystery to go over into more detail.
Thank you, Himadri, Edie, and Luz, for sharing the rationale for you coming to pursuing a graduate degree and what is involved in making that happen, what motivated you, how it happened. It's extremely important to know within yourselves why you want to get a graduate degree and what type of graduate degree you wish to get. So the first thing I want to do is to share with you why graduate school. And this is more important for the US-based students than it is for students who come from around the world. What I've done here is I've gone to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and pulled out this graph. It deals with earnings and unemployment rates by education attainment based on 2023 figures. Here is median usual weekly earnings, and this column is unemployment rates. The doctoral degree, the unemployment rate is 1.6%, and the average weekly earnings is $2,100. And the master's degree is $1,700 with 2% of unemployment. And the bachelor's degree is about $1,500 a week with 2.2%. What I've done here is identify the delta between a PhD and a BS, and that is $32,000 per year. The difference between the annual salary of a PhD and a bachelor's student, the median, is $32,000 a year. That's huge. Between a PhD and a master's, it's $19,000 a year, and between a master's and a bachelor's, it's about $13,000 a year. To get a master's, you can do a 2-year master's or a 1-year master's, and the increment is $12,788 a year. And to get a bonus or get a pay raise in 1 year or 2 years amounting to that is very difficult. And the same would apply out here. You will also observe that for a PhD, the unemployment rate is 1.6%. And this is particularly important for international students who wish to come to the United States and then settle down here. The United States has a national interest waiver program, which makes it easy for you to get a green card, particularly if you have a PhD. It's a bit more difficult if you have a master's. So if you have a PhD, typically you go to a lawyer, pay $10,000, fill in the forms, and people will have to write letters for you, including your faculty advisor, and then it just happens. So that program exists, and it will continue to exist. And so if you're thinking in terms of settling down in this country, getting a PhD is going to help you. Here is information from 2021. It's the same thing. You will see that the difference is $30,000 a year, $17,000 a year, $12,000 a year. The unemployment rate was a bit higher because this was just after the COVID as to what happened. So now I want to tell you something called Farukism. A Farukism is a strongly held belief that you cannot argue with. This is my belief. So you cannot argue against a belief. I share with you my strongly held beliefs that others may disagree with. The beauty of this is that there are many options, and so you need to talk to other people, find out what their opinions are, and then say, I do what is right for me. So I'm going to share with you and be very blunt and open when asked a question, saying, this is what I believe. That does not mean it's politically correct or it's appropriate for all situations. There are 2 thoughts that motivate me. One is that we are currently preparing students for jobs that don't exist, using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. This is a phenomenal observation. Just think about it, that we are currently preparing students for jobs that don't exist. These are the new jobs that are going to come in with the new economy, using technologies that haven't been invented yet. So you have a great opportunity to invent technology in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. I mean, that's a phenomenal future to think about and be excited about. And the one that keeps me going is attributed to Charles Darwin. It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but one's most responsive to change. This is very insightful. All of you are strong. All of you are intelligent. Key thing, the reason for getting a graduate education is to learn how to be responsive to change, how to adapt. And the speakers who went ahead of me, they mentioned the idea of not being stuck, being adaptable, having perseverance, being flexible, etc. I want to tell you a little story, and you will see that this is from Alice in Wonderland. This is a classic. It's a children's story. And you will see that the cat is here, in the tree. That's the Cheshire Cat, and this is Alice. There's a tree, and there's a little placard here on which the story is told. Behind that plaque, there is a wall, and Alice has been given the opportunity to be shrunk to a tiny, tiny little person and go through a tiny hole that is in the wall. So on this side of the wall, where Alice is standing and you can see the cat and the tree, I'd like to call it the world of reality. That's the world in which we are living today, where we know, okay, we can do such and such. We have cars, we have this, we have that, we have machines. These are the tools that we have. We can solve the problems using these tools. On the other side of the wall, Alice is tiny, absolutely tiny. But that's the world of make-believe. It's nothing. It's an open thing. She can believe anything and do anything that she wants. So now imagine that I come to Alice and say, aha, Alice, solve this problem. So Alice will immediately look at this little box at her feet, and she will look into it and say, this is the knowledge that I have, being a bachelor's engineer or a bachelor's social scientist or what have you, and she will solve the problem using the tools that she has. And then I'll go back to her and say, Alice, I want you to do it quicker, and she'll do it quicker. Then I'll say, do it faster. She'll do it faster. I'll tell her to do it less cheaply. She will continue to do that. In other words, she'll do things cheaper, quicker, faster, better, etc. At some stage, it is possible for me to automate that system. The computers can take it over, or that I can offshore the job to places where the salaries are much lower. In other words, Alice's talents will no longer be required, and she will have to think about doing something else. This is what happens in the world of reality. Alice is encouraged in industry and elsewhere to be a tool user, to learn how to use the tool quicker, better, faster, to make money for the people who employ her. On the other side of the wall is the world of make-believe. Alice is tiny, and the knowledge that she has is tiny as still. And I go to her and say, Alice, I want you to tell me what I should do, speculate about the future, and tell me what new products, what new services, what new things are required so that I can be an entrepreneur and make things happen. Alice looks in her toolbox and finds that the tools that she had put together or that she had learned are no longer valid, cannot be used to frame problems in the future. They can be used to solve problems in the present, but not frame problems in the future. So she is limited. She has to, by the tools that she has, and she says, aha, I need to be a tool maker. So she needs to become a tool maker. So there's a difference between a tool maker and a tool user. Both are necessary in government, industry, and academia. You need to know how to be a tool user. Only then, I believe, can you be a tool maker. So what is important here is the following. It is important for you to have a goal. So how does that come in? Alice goes to the Cheshire Cat and says, I have this opportunity to go through the wall to the other side. What should I do? And the Cheshire Cat says, what is it you want to do? And Alice says, I don't care as long as I get there. In which case the Cheshire Cat says, okay, do what you want. Eventually you will get there. You may spend time, you may waste time, but eventually you will get there. Okay. So what's the point? It is important when you decide on going to graduate school to say why you're going to graduate school and what you wish to get out of graduate school. So you have to have a goal. This is the type of education I want. It's not just say, I want to go to a graduate school and I want to study this or I'll study anything, etc. So the second thing you have to decide is, hey, look, when I go to a graduate school, do I want to leave as a tool user or do I want to leave as a tool maker? This is where Farukism comes in. At the undergraduate level, we introduce you to how to solve simple problems. We may call them real world stuff like that, but that's really not the case. These are simple problems. At the master's level, it's the first opportunity that you will have to address complicated problems. You're not given the problem and said, aha, I know that there is a solution to this problem. I go out, use this equation, plug and chug, and you'll get that answer. At the master's level, you'll be given a problem and say, we think there's a solution out here. Why don't you find it? It's only at the PhD level where the general problem is given to you, but you don't know what tools. There are no tools for you to go and solve that problem. You have to create those tools to solve that problem. That's when you become a tool maker. And that's when you get the experience of addressing and doing things in the world of make-believe. So if you're happy living in the world of reality, then perhaps a graduate degree, maybe a master's is good enough. But if you're interested in doing things in the world of make-believe and making an impact in the world of make-believe, you really truly need to get a PhD. So you need to decide on a goal as to what you want to do. And then based on that goal, you have to look for which graduate program is right for you. It's no good coming along and saying, oh, I want to go to MIT because MIT is a great institution, or I want to go to Georgia Tech. Oh, I don't want to go to this university because it doesn't have a reputation. That is not the way in which you go about doing things. So now, for graduate school, typically graduate school is free for engineering students. This includes international students who qualify to get either a graduate research assistantship, a graduate teaching assistantship, or a fellowship. I will tell you more about that as we proceed. What is important for all, whether it's from the United States or from the rest of the world, is your grade point average, the GRE score, and your statement of purpose. These are the three key things that are important for you to do well. Now, some universities have said they don't need the GRE. That is true. But again, talking from a Farukism standpoint, I believe you need to take the GRE and do well at that. Even if the university says they don't look at it, professors look at that. And I will tell you a little later as to how I look at the GRE and why I think it's important for you to take it. So in this talk, I plan to cover minimum GPA and GRE scores, what to study, where to apply, how many places to apply, financial assistance, statement of purpose, finding a research advisor, etc. And then I will touch upon what is the timeline and steps to follow to secure admission and financial support at a graduate institution in the US. So what are the talking points? The first thing, does it matter what I study in graduate school? There are people who say, aha, I want to do data science. I want to do such and such. Well, 5 years ago, we didn't hear of data science. Now data science is a big thing. I bet you 10 years from now or 5 years from now, data science will not be a big thing. There'll be something else that comes up. These are tools that happen. What is important when you go to graduate school, whether it's a master's or a PhD, is not the problem that you solve, but the competencies that you take away from it. What did you learn as a result of having solved this problem that you can use for the rest of your life? What are the lessons that you're taking away? So if all you're going to do is to say, I'm going to work for a professor, solve this problem, use this computer program, use this machine learning tool to solve this problem, you're not setting yourself up for life. You're solving the professor's problem. You're not addressing what is it that you have learned to go out and live a happy and successful career. So does it matter what you study in graduate school? My answer is no. It really, truly doesn't matter. How do I pay for my graduate education? Well, there are three sources. A graduate research assistantship, which is, in my opinion, the best because you can focus totally on doing your research. A graduate teaching assistantship, which I think allows you to do things, but it's lousy because you have to spend 20 hours a week doing other things, and your PhD is part-time. And as Jason has mentioned, not being able to focus totally on studies is difficult. And the third are fellowships. Fellowships are available to international to US students, but for international students, they're virtually non-existent. How many applications? This is what I tell you to do. You need to identify a list, about 20 schools that you're interested in, schools or programs that you're interested in, then downsize them to about 10, apply to 3 or 4 dream schools, 3 or 4 schools that you're comfortable with, and 2 or 3 that are backup schools. Apply to no more than 10, maybe even 8, but you have to put in a lot of effort to make that happen. Regrettably, a number of people apply to 50 schools and stuff like that, hoping something will break out, and they don't get anything, or they get one, and they have no choice in terms of how to make things happen. That is because they don't put in the effort to create a competitive application. And I will tell you what goes into making a competitive application. The GPA, the higher the GPA, the better chances of you getting financial support and admission. Typically, if you have a GPA of over 3.5 and above, the chances of getting admission at a top school are good. If you have a GPA of 3.7 and above, the chances of getting a admission with financial support is good at a top institution. If your GPA is between 3.2 and 3.5, but your portfolio, you've done other things that make you stand out, the possibility of you getting admission is good, but financial assistance is fair. These are Farukisms. These are things that based on my experience. Others will give you another opinion. At the GRE, I look for, in the quantitative side, over 155. That means over 70%. Sorry, most people look for that. I look for over 90%. In the verbal score, for international students, I look for over 50%. And the analytical score I pay the most attention to. That is greater than 4 out of 6. And why is that the case? The for the analytic score, what you have to do is to read a passage, understand the passage, and then answer certain questions. Now, this is essential for a PhD. In other words, you read something and you then find the gaps. You critically evaluate what you've read and you say, this is the gap, and you proceed further. So to me, the analytical score is extremely, extremely important. I pay less attention to the quantitative score and the verbal score. For the verbal score, for an international student, I will look at what I've said, 50%. For a student from the United States or from an English-speaking country, I look for 70%. At the quantitative level, the minimum that I look for is 155, but I typically look for something in the order of 90%. Now, why am I saying this? You can practice for the GRE. You need to practice for the GRE. It's not just going along and saying, hey, guess what? I'll take the GRE and that's it. You need to work at it. And there are books available. There are videos available. There's material on the web that's available. So I would strongly advise you to study for the GRE, work hard at the GRE, and get a good GRE score. Now, why am I interested in these numbers? As I mentioned to you, for the analytical score, I'm figuring out whether this person is able to read something outside their domain of interest and tell me something about it by reasoning, the ability to critically evaluate and reason. The verbal score is very important to me for 2 reasons. One, if the person's verbal score is not good, it means that the person does not have a good vocabulary. If you do not have a strong vocabulary, what that means is that when you read material in English, you're not going to get the full impact of what has been written out there. And also, having a good vocabulary helps you in writing. And I love writing, and I love writing papers and publishing papers and stuff like that. And this is evidenced by my wife and I having published over 550 publications. The mathematical score is important because a lot in engineering is anchored in mathematics. So this is why I think the GRE is important. When I look at these GRE scores, that's the message I'm taking away. That's what I'm looking for. And other professors will be doing something similar, maybe not quite exactly what I'm doing. So now I mentioned to you that you identify 20 programs that are appropriate, that you think are appropriate for you, and then do your homework. Doing your homework is very important. What you need to do first is to communicate with the students of the professors. When you write to the professor directly, typically most professors will ignore you. And so how do you find these 20 universities or 20 programs? You talk to the students, typically from your country, they are most likely to respond to you. If you say, is the professor good? Everybody will say the professor is good, but that's not how you get information. How does the professor guide students? How often do you meet with the professor on a one-on-one basis? What are the professor's expectations? Does the professor help students get jobs? It's not the role of a professor to help students get jobs. There's some who'll say, hey, guess what? Like for our eldest son, who got a PhD from Princeton, his professor said that I'm going to write a letter of recommendation for you and give it to the secretary. When you apply somewhere, inform the secretary and she will send the letter of recommendation off on my behalf. So he's not going to change it. He's not going to read it. He's just written some general letter to make things happen. There are other professors who say, hey, guess what? When you apply to a place to get a job, send me your application and I will tailor make my letter of recommendation to the place that you've applied to make things happen. The same thing is true in terms of getting jobs. How does the professor relate to the students? That's a very important issue because you're going to spend 2 to 5 years with that professor. And is that professor family friendly? Is that professor professional and aloof? How does it happen? Have you been to the professor's home? Have you had dinner with the professor? Have you had lunch with the professor? Do you know the professor's family? When some big shot comes to talk to the laboratory, do you get a chance to talk? Or just does the professor do all the talking? And what is most important is what are the professor's current research interests? It's not the past, it is what is the current. For example, I still get letters from people saying, I'm interested in material science. I want to do a PhD with you in material science. I've stopped doing anything in material science since 2019. So you need to find the professor's current interest. You can find that from the students, but more importantly, you can become a member of ResearchGate, researchgate.net, and that is free. And you can find out using keywords what a professor does. You can also do that through Google Scholar. Then once you've done that, once you go along and find 1 or 2 papers of that professor, read what is in those papers, and then communicate with the professor saying, I read these 2 papers, recent papers of yours. This is how I can contribute to your research program. It's not, hey, this is what I've done, this is what it is, this is my history. You figure out whether or not I can work for you. That is not that is not what's going to get you in. What is going to get you in is for the professor to recognize that you've done your homework. You're honest in saying, hey, these are my competencies, these are my skills, this is how I can help you in your research program. So you need to tailor your statement of purpose to the professor and the institution. And when you send this letter in, you copy the professor student who you've communicated with and say, I've been talking to student X, and this is what I learned from this person. He's been very helpful, or she's been very helpful. Why is it important to copy the professor student? Because the professor student then says, aha, I can go, I've talked to this person, I know this person, professor, it's worth your while to respond to this particular student. What is key in these emails is how you can add value to the professor's research program and what will distinguish you from others. It's no good you coming and telling me, hey, guess what? I am good. I'm confident that I can add to your research program. I don't care about your confidence. What I want to know is what you know about me and how you can help me promote my research program. So this is the timeline scenario, and this webinar, unfortunately, is rather late in the year, but it's still useful. You need to start the application process a year before you plan to join the graduate program. To start in fall 2025, you need to start working on your application in the summer of 2024. So what you need to do is to take the GRE and the TOEFL. TOEFL is absolutely necessary for all international students, and identify about a dozen schools that, as I said, first look for 20 and then reduce them to a dozen or 10 schools. Prepare a statement of purpose, and I'll tell you what's involved in the statement of purpose. Show how you can add value to the research program at the institution in general and the selected professors in particular. Plan on applying to about 8 schools, 3 dream schools, 3 good schools, 2 backup schools. Apply. You have a better chance of getting admission with financial assistance early in the earlier you apply. No matter what is stated on the website, the last date for applications to be considered is December 31st, 2024. Now, at this stage, I want to tell you that if you say that you want to do a PhD, your chances of getting financial support are at least 60% higher than saying, I just want to do a master's and go to industry. Most invitations go out by the end of February or early March with a deadline to accept or not accept by April 15th. It is extremely important, particularly for international students, not to go along and say, accept one position, and then when something else comes along, tell the person who's given you that position, hey, guess what? I'm going off somewhere else. That is not it. Integrity is extremely, extremely important, because the professor who's committed to you has tied up his or her money to support you. And then if you go along and say, oh, I got a better offer, I'm going somewhere else, to hell with you, that is not ethical and it is not appropriate. When you accept a position, you must commit to support to that particular professor. Financial aid, research assistantships. This is tied to specific knowledge, skills, and interest needed. Teaching assistantship, specific knowledge as well as the knowledge of English. The knowledge of English is extremely, extremely important for a teaching assistantship. For international students, it is not going to be possible for you to get a teaching assistantship in the first semester. In the second semester, it becomes possible. And these teaching assistantships typically go to students who excel, get 4.0 in all their courses, and they make connections with professors, and the professor then comes along and says, aha, I would like this person to be my TA, and you can make things happen. So getting a 4.0 is critical. For most international students, they come to the United States, and if they don't have the money, the only thing they can do is to work on campus. And typically, these campus jobs are for 20 hours a week at minimum pay. The minimum pay depends on the state in which you are in. They vary from $7.50 to $20. At the University of Oklahoma, a person who works 20 hours a week will get $400 a month, which is not even enough to cover tuition. So working 20 hours a week is a killer, because you have to take a full course load. You cannot take a half course load or anything like that. And so it is important to strive for a research assistantship. International students loans are very hard for international students. At universities like Berkeley, where I went, as I landed, I got a loan that is possible. It's a repay. There's no interest, but it's very rare that you can do it. Most universities do not have the facility for international students to get loans. Work for international students, you're restricted to work on campus. Jobs such as work in the library, cafeteria, in a parking lot. The cafeteria job is horrible because you'll be washing dishes, cleaning tables, doing things like that. You could work at a sorority or a fraternity, and there also you'll be doing menial tasks like laundry, cleaning the latrines and stuff along those lines. The maximum is 20 hours a week, and you're typically paid a minimum hourly rate, and it will not be enough to cover tuition or living expenses. Now, this slide is probably the most important slide that I can leave with you. And what are the typical features, the salient features of a statement of purpose? It typically goes from 1 to 1.5 pages. That is about 400 to 600 words. And whether you get admission and financial support hinges to a significant extent on your statement of purpose. This is a Farukism. Other professors will give you different ideas. You need to state upfront in para 1 what degree do you want and why, and what do you plan to do after getting your degree. This is critical. Why is that the case? US institutions get a huge amount of support from the alumni. They want you to donate. So if you go along and say, hey, guess what? I want to get a PhD and I want to go and work in industry doing X, Y, and Z, then the first step is to say, okay, the person gets a PhD, so I'm interested as a professor. Second, the university comes along and says, this person will be successful and will give back to the university. Now, so it's very important for you to show value here, value to the communities. You could say, I want to go to industry. You could say, I want to be a professor. I want to work for the government. It doesn't matter what it is, but you have to express a goal that communicates to the people looking at it that, hey, guess what? You're going to be a productive individual who's going to contribute to the well-being of society one way or the other. In the second paragraph, you focus on your academic preparation for what you wish to study and your accomplishments. Don't give me the history of saying, ever since I was a little child, I was interested in engineering, and my father is an engineer, and my mother is a housewife, etc., etc. I am not interested in history. What I am interested in is your academic preparation. What is your GPA? What is your GRE score? What excited you about your academic program? What individual research projects did you take? What papers have you published? What have you done to prepare yourself to come along and do research for me? That is what I want to look at. How prepared are you? What do you understand is involved in research? Then the third one is your extracurricular activities. And the emphasis needs to be, how have these shaped who you are? If you just tell me I love to play soccer, I love to do this, I love to do that, doesn't mean anything. But I'm looking for your emotional quotient. The intellectual quotient you told me in your GPA and GRE. In this, I'm looking for your emotional quotient. Do you like working with people? Have you held leadership positions? Have you made a difference? If you said, I led this, but you don't tell me what impact you had, or what your philosophy is, or how these experiences have molded you, I'm not interested. So this, in the third one, I'm looking for your emotional quotient. Then in the fourth paragraph, you need to particularize who you are, what you are, your intellect and your intelligence, to the program you're applying to. Why this institution? And you don't say you're a great institution, therefore I want to be with you. That means nothing. Buttering up the institution or the professor, you're the greatest professor in the world, means nothing. Because the professor knows whether he or she is the greatest or not the greatest. The professor knows whether his institution is or is not the greatest. And that is not a way to come across as an honest person with integrity. You need to tell me why you want to come to this institution. What programs are there? You may say, well, I'm interested in this institution because you have a special program in social work, or in aerospace engineering, whatever it is. What special program? What effort have you made to go to the websites to see what the professors do, etc., etc.? Then you would identify one or two professors saying, hey, guess what? My interest, these professors do these things. I would like to know more about these professors, or possibly explore working with these professors. Much of this information comes from the exploration of the web, not just the website of the university, but also ResearchGate and Google Scholar. And in the fifth paragraph is a summary statement as to what you plan to do professionally and why this place is the right place for you. Out here, that fifth paragraph, what I'm looking for here is your ability to synthesize. You've put this together and you're synthesizing para 1, 2, 3, and 4 and telling me, having synthesized this information, why I should hire you. This is not easy. So what I'm looking for here is you're telling me your intellectual quotient, that's through GPA and the GRE scores, your emotional quotient in terms of your extracurricular activities and how these have shaped you, and finally, your ability to synthesize, your ability to pull things together. So for a PhD student or for to do any type of research, you need to be able to identify the gaps, figure out what has to happen, and then synthesize these things so that you can publish it. Now, some institutions require short one-paragraph essays. And when Georgia Tech, for example, requires a one-paragraph essays. And when I look at those essays, the prompt says X and the person tells me Y. Why would I go with a person who says, when I want to know this, you're telling me something else? I don't care what you want to tell me. I want you to answer my question. So read the prompt for the essay. Write the prompt for the essay in a Word document or a sheet of paper. Don't try and fill it up online. It doesn't work. Reflect with a view to understanding the prompt. What is it that this person is looking for? Then do a mind dump of what you could include in your essay. Whoever it is, could you mute yourself? Yeah. Okay. So do a mind dump of what you could include in your essay, because these essays, they'll say 100 words, 200 words, stuff like that. It's not a long thing. Then, after you've done that, you organize these bullet points or sentences into categories that will morph into paragraphs. And then you write and respond to the prompt. Then read the prompt and check what you have in point 5 is in agreement with your understanding of what is required in point 3. This way you make sure that you have indeed responded to the prompt. Modify where necessary. Now you can start writing the essay by connecting the materials you've put together in point 7. Review for connectivity and revise. It is critical that you put it through the grammar and spell checker, read carefully and tweak. Now, some people may think, I'm going to put it to ChatGPT and tell them to fix it for me. You have to be extremely careful because ChatGPT hallucinates. And what is important is that you don't want ChatGPT to be given admission, but you want to be given admission. So the person needs to recognize, this is idiomatic English from Ghana or from India. I will accept that. So the idiomatic English, particularly from international students, I value. I really value that because they are saying, this is where I'm coming from. This is how I've studied English. Now, letters to professors. I typically get at least 3 letters a week, at least. My wife and I reply to each and every email that we get from students from around the world, each and every email. And here are some of the things that turn me off. This is a Farooqism. My research interests match your research interests. Therefore, admit me, give me money, and I'll do whatever you want. I have read your paper and interested in your work. And the person may go on and say, I've read your paper, interested in your work. My interest is in fluid mechanics. I haven't published a single paper in fluid mechanics. I hate fluid mechanics. I don't want to have anything to do with fluid mechanics. In other words, a person is lying to me. Why would I hire a person who is lying to me? I have been to your website and I'm really excited about it. You're a great person, blah, blah, blah. I want to do fluid mechanics. Why would I want to do that? Why would I hire a person like that? You need to have integrity. I want to see integrity. Yes, you looked at my paper. You can quote my paper. You can tell me what you got out of the paper. It may be right, it may be wrong, it doesn't matter, but you've done it, and I can say, yes, it's based on what I have written. You're the greatest, therefore I want to work with you. I looked you up, and you're recognized that 2% of the 100,000 engineers and scientists in the world. That is true. That's a fact. Therefore, I want to work with you. I'm not interested in that. Yes, I am 2% of the 100,000 in the world. I'm recognized that way. I thank you for that. I thank you for the compliment. But that is not good enough for you to come and say you want to work with me. Your institution is great, therefore admit me and give me financial support. I'm not interested in that. I know what the great institutions are. I know that the institution that I'm at what level it is. So if you tell me I'm the greatest and the bestest, I'm not interested. I'm really interested in research, but I only want a master's. I'm not interested. Why? Because if you're really interested in research, then master's is not good enough. To a professor who's never published an X, okay, I will explain that. Now to my wife, she gets emails saying, "Dear Professor Allen," but it starts, she gets an email to Janet Allen at ou.edu, and the email starts with, "Dear sir, I've been to your website and my research interest matches yours." She's a woman. She's a very successful woman. She's also in the 2% of the engineers and scientists and stuff like that in the world. But they start with, "Dear sir." Why would I want to hire somebody or even reach out to somebody? I plan to get a MS, work in industry, and then come back for a PhD. My wife and I have worked with over 120 people who've gotten a graduate degree with us. Out of that, only 2 people have come back for a PhD. Only 2. Chances are, I don't buy that. I mean, you can think that that can be done, just like Jason said, that go immediately and get your master's. I don't buy it. You want to do research, get a PhD, you have to commit to that from the very beginning. It makes a huge difference, because when I know a person wants to do a PhD, I will educate that person, give the topics, things like that, that'll be different to if I only take a person for a master's, say, solve this problem, solve that problem, etc. Here are the resources. These are phenomenal resources. Graduate School and You. You can go to that and it'll give you these things that I've told you. You can go and check them out there. You can find out even more about what happens, how it happens, all this sort of stuff. The University of Oklahoma has a very good website, graduate school website. Graduate Schools of the Planet is a phenomenal website. And this again is another Farukism. The United States is not the only place that provides good graduate education. There are universities in Canada, for example, McGill, Toronto, University of British Columbia, that offer phenomenal degrees. Universities in Singapore, the National University of Singapore, the National Institute of Technology, Yanyan University, absolutely phenomenal. There are 2 universities in Hong Kong, absolutely phenomenal. You will get a superb education at these places. Universities in Australia, like the University of Sydney, the University of New South Wales, outstanding education. University of Melbourne, the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, Swinburne Institute of Technology, absolutely superb pieces of education. So look around. Don't just go and say, I'm going to the United States and that's the end of it. So when I talk about 20 institutions that you find out, it's not just in the United States. It is all over the world where you can get a superb graduate education. It'll be different, but you will get a very good PhD at these places that I've mentioned to you. I'm talking. The GRE test is on the website is there. I suggest that you pay attention to it. The TOEFL test is there. And for those of you, particularly the US students who wish to go to graduate school, you can apply for a NSF Graduate Research Fellowship. You get $35,000 a year plus tuition, plus travel, etc. And so now, Himadri, back to you. You're muted.
So hello again. Now I would like to introduce our graduate student community leadership team for 2024 and 5. In publicity, we have Shopnil and Avinash, who is handling the communication. We have Siavash, he is our treasurer, and in support we have Sharbes, Luis Vasquez, Roshan, Jason Betty, Narian, and myself. For correspondence, Rodney Hurt and Rachel Bennett manage the communication as they're the chair of our team, and Professor Farooq Mistry serves as our faculty mentor. And we meet on Thursdays from 4:30 to 5:30 at Engineering Laboratory Building in room 101. For more information, please feel free to contact Rodney and Rachel. And also, if you want to like us, like to join our team, then please come to our meetings. And if you are looking for support with your graduate school applications, for the GSC team is here to support you, to help you. You can reach out to any of our team members listed here for feedback of your application materials, whenever it's statement of purpose, CV, or other documents as well. Also, please add your name to the attendance sheet that Rachel has shared in the chat, so we can keep track of our everyone's attendance here. And if you have definitely any specific questions or clarification needed, please feel free to ask. Thank you very much.
So we've been talking for about an hour, and so now is the time for chit-chatting and answering your questions. So the way in which we'd like to do it is that if you have a question, please put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I will recognize you and we can proceed. So before that, Boris Balsara is a professor and also an associate dean at the University of Texas at Dallas. Boris, would you like to, I invite you to add stuff to what I have said.
Sure. In fact, you have covered virtually everything that I would have talked about. I would like to reiterate a couple of these points, and like you, those are my pet peeves, and they really turn them off. Number one is integrity. I've been teaching for slightly shorter time than Farooq. I've been teaching for now 36 years. But in my career, I've been kind of duped 2 times by a student who accepted my offer to join the graduate program, and then at the last minute, not even giving me enough warning, but at the last minute went to another university. There's nothing I can do to stop you from doing that, but that really leaves a bad taste in the mouth. It also creates some sort of a bad reputation from the school where you come from and the group that you come from. Because as a graduate student, we teach our students integrity first in research and in the professional life. And so this is really, really important. If there are some other personal reasons, family oriented and all this stuff, we can understand. But just that you got few dollars more or some such thing, that's not an acceptable excuse. Because remember, professionally, our paths will cross sometime if you're working in the same area. So that kind of creates a bad impression for the person. The other thing is, we have, as Farooq said, we keep on receiving, Farooq said 3 messages. I have been receiving virtually 1 email every day. That it has been their lifelong dream to work with me. And my colleague next door also receives the same message. So if people think that we are operating in a vacuum, that's wrong. We do share information. We do know who is doing what kind of stuff. So as Farooq said, tell us what is it that you're really passionate about. Tell us why I should consider you and not somebody else. What is it that you have done These days, there are lots of conferences and journals that have popped up that even when you are an undergraduate as a freshman, you might be able to publish. A lot of these are pay to publish journals or some Mickey Mouse conferences that have come up. So if the conference is not a high impact conference in your research area or a high impact journal in your research area, publishing in those conferences to just create your beefed up CV is actually hurting your chances of getting admission. The other thing is that if you have some substantial publications in which you are one of 51 authors, that also is useless. If you have done something in which you are one of 3 or 4 authors, then specify what is it that you have done, what was your contribution. There's nothing wrong in having small but critical contribution to the research or the publication that is there. Be honest. I prefer honesty rather than to have this beefed up resume that tells me that that you are a superstar, but when you land here, you cannot do a simple thing on your own kind of stuff. And then lastly, whatever you are planning to do once you come to grad school, remember grad school is different from undergraduate school, especially for PhD programs. We like to see fire in your belly. That when and PhD research is not going to work like an undergraduate degree that you do 4 years and take these courses. You can finish your degree and graduate. PhD is going to be based on research in which you are contributing to body of knowledge, innovation, and all that stuff. So that does not happen by just sitting in one corner for 4 years and suddenly at the end you can get your PhD. You need to work towards solving some problem that has not been solved before and contribute to body of knowledge. So having said that, sometimes you may not find anything happening. Sometimes you may have complete lows in your progress, but sometimes suddenly ideas keep popping in your head. That's the time you have to capitalize on the time that you have. So that's why I say that when you are doing something interesting and you have that passion for whatever you are working on, if you forget what time of day it is, if you forget that you're hungry, if you forget that you have not slept for last 24 hours, that is the passionate problem that you should be working on. And that's how you should identify what is your passion. So with that, I'll shut up and take any questions or comments and chime in whenever Farooq would like me to. So
Thank you. So we are open for comments, questions, additions from our team, Rachel, Rodney, Himadri, anybody else? Anybody?
I would say something.
Yeah.
You know, you talked about looking for help to pay for graduate school. That's definitely one thing to look into too. If you're working, you know, there's a lot of businesses, and especially if you work for the federal business, there's a lot of opportunities that they'll pay. They might not pay the whole your whole graduation, but they'll pay you like up to 75% in the Air Force. For me, and then also my wife, her job she works for, there's a lot of opportunities that they help pay for it, and that they try to work around a schedule too. So, like I said, if your plan right now is to graduate with your undergrad and get a job, start looking in your job, see if they, hey, you know, send me off back to the school, get my master's, and I'll sign a 3-year contract with you to stay with you after I get my master's, and they'll hopefully help, you know, usually help me pay for it. I've known several people in the industry, you know, one of my engineers in my office right now, he was working in the oil industry, and they sent him to get his master's. So that's a good thing to look at.
Thank you. Kelvin.
Hello. Good evening from Ghana. My question is, I would want to find out when switching fields, as in when you did your undergraduate in mechanical engineering and you want to pursue a master's of science thesis based in petroleum engineering, what should you highlight in your SOP and your resume aside the transferable skills? and to be more competitive for the program you are looking up for?
Let me see if I understand your question. Are you asking me if you've done a degree in one area and you want to do a degree in another area? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, exactly. You did a degree in mechanical and you work in oil and gas industry for in a long co-op for let's say 1 year, and you want to switch to from mechanical to petroleum thesis be for masters.
Okay, so
What-
the issue here that you have to bring out, just like Porus mentioned, is this is who I am. These are my competencies. It doesn't matter whether they're in mechanical or petroleum. These are transferable skills. This is what I want to contribute to. That is what you have to bring out in your statement of purpose. And in the CV which you turn in, at the top, at the very beginning, you need to write your career objective. That's another place where you can communicate and say, hey, guess what? I'm in petroleum engineering. I've worked in petroleum engineering, but I want to get a master's or PhD in mechanical engineering. This happens all the time. For example, there are people with aerospace degrees who want to get degrees in mechanical engineering, mechanical engineers who want to get degrees in aerospace engineering because of the commonality between the fields. And the same thing happens between petroleum engineering, chemical engineering, petroleum geosciences, and physics, etc. So you have to sell yourself. You have to tell a story so that the professor who reads it says, yes, I'm interested. For example, right now, we brought in a lady from India who has a degree in designing electronic equipment. She's in industrial and systems engineering, but we have a need for her because we're interested in designing control systems. So people are open to bringing people in, provided they tell a good story.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Boris, anything to add to that?
No, I think what you covered is fine. Basically, there has to be something personal in your statement, your story which is unique. Don't use cliches and other things that everybody writes. And please don't use ChatGPT to write your essay. There are tools available that people now submit your documents, and it tells us how much of it was AI generated and how much of it was individually written. So.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you very much.
Other questions? All right. In that case, I want to start asking people.
There's
What
a
is it
question
that-
in the chat.
Yeah. In your experience, what is the best way to pursue undergraduate opportunities under professors? Also, what is the most sought after extracurriculars in resumes? Let me try and answer that. As far as extracurriculars are concerned, it doesn't bother me what extracurricular activity is involved. It is how has that activity shaped you? So, for example, if you're a soccer player, to play soccer, you have to have a strategy. You have to know how to work in a team. You have to share to gain. You have to pass the soccer ball from one person to the other. You are not selfish. That's the lesson that you've learned. And so you need to include that in your story. If you're a swimmer, you've had to practice early in the morning, etc., and you need to bring that out and say, this is what I've learned from it, and this is what I can offer you: persistence, training, etc. So you have to take these extracurricular, the sports curricular activities, and show them how it adds value to your being a PhD student. If you have done undergraduate research and you've published a paper, then you need to bring that out and say, hey, I published this paper and this has motivated me to continue doing research, etc. So that's my response to extracurricular activities. It doesn't matter what you have. It's what you have learned from it that matters to me. What is the best way to pursue undergraduate opportunities under professors for research? Here's the story. what you do is you take a course from a professor and then go and talk to that professor and say, do you have a research opportunity? That's one way. Two is in your school, you go along and you talk to professor and say, what are you working on? Tell me more about what you're doing. Or you go to the laboratory or the students of that professor and say, tell me what's happening, and you continue that way. Now, my wife and I have give research internships, remote research internships. We have people in China, we have people in India, we have a person in the United States who does a remote internship with us. We meet with them every week. The outcome of that is a paper, and we make that happen. How did that happen? They reached out to us and said, hey, look, I'm interested in a research internship. This is my background. This is what it is. Will you do it? Now, some professors will say yes. Some professors will say no. My wife and I have such connections. So this shows your desire to do research, your desire to learn how to do things and stuff like that. So, Mohammed Jahid Hassan, have I answered your question?
Right.
Oh,
I think
sorry.
that question was from Cole.
Okay, Cole. Did I answer your question, Cole? Okay. The next
And
one.
actually,
Yeah, okay.
could I add one thing onto that from what you said?
Yeah, go ahead.
Whenever I first started doing my undergraduate research project with Dr. Song at OU, I actually treated it much or similar to how Professor Mystery has suggested applying to graduate school. So I found a couple of papers that she had published and then asked to meet with her and said, I see that you've done work on this chilled water control valve. I'd like to, build on the work that you've done here, and I think we can do it in this way, or I can, learn how to improve it with you. And then it worked out into now I'm pursuing my PhD with her as my advisor.
Thank you, Rodney. Arpit Agarwal says, I'm 35 years old and coming back after a career break. How practical could it be to get a PhD for a person in my place? It depends on the passion in your belly. For example, we graduated 2 years ago, a lady from China. She did her bachelor's and master's in China. She worked in industry. And she said that she wanted to be a professor. And my wife and I only take people for a PhD who want to be professors. If you want to go to industry, we tell you to go somewhere else because our whole lab is set up for people who want to be professors. And she came to us and we worked with her. It took her some time to get adjusted. It was a total change in field in terms of what she had done. But because of her passion, her dedication, and saying that she wanted to do a professor, she had a child. Her parents were her husband and parents were behind her. For the first year, the child was taken care of by the father and the grandparents. Then the child came to the United States, and she had another child. Then her husband came to the United States, and now they are both professors in South Dakota. So it's totally possible, but it has to be a family affair. It cannot be you just doing it for yourself. And we've just now, not just now, we've been working with a lady who after a break of 13 years came back to graduate school, and she's doing a PhD with us. So it's totally possible. Thank you, Himadri, for answering the question. And Arpit, has that answered your question?
Certainly, that's a very good way to put it up. I'm glad for it.
Okay.
I'd like to add one more thing to that.
Sure.
I don't know, Dr. Farouk, I'd like to add one more thing. I have several other people also from Tinker working, came back to OU. They're pursuing their PhDs. One's my age, another one's about 10 years older than me. So it's a lot of people are doing it around my age and a little bit older. They're coming back and they're getting their PhDs.
All right. So, yeah.
1 second. So to Arpit, your best bet is to get a PhD in India, not in the United States. if you have a family. It is much, much better to sit for the JEE exam and work with a professor at the IITs or the Indian Institute of Science in India. Indian Institute of Science in India is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal in terms of the diversity of the programs that it offers and what it does. Doing it
it's a quite
internationally is
practical.
going to be difficult if you have a family, because the support that you will get in the stipend will not cover the family expenses.
So I'm a bachelor as of now, but it is not simply that I'm switching industries. So I've had my own personal issues and like starting back to studies after a long break. So that is what bothers more to me.
Okay, so we've answered your question. Those are your options, and I gave you a Farooqism that do it in India. All right, then what's the next question? Anybody else? Anything to add, Boris, to these questions that we've had?
I think we missed one in the chat.
What am I missing?
I think Mohammed has
For the relatively lower GPA question?
Oh, lower GPA. Well, here's the deal. If you have a low GPA at the bachelor's level, your best bet is to get a master's at in your country at your institution and get a much higher GPA. If you have a low GPA and you apply to the United States as an international student, as a US student, that's different. But as an international student, it's going to be very difficult. Now, it's possible that if there's a professor from your country who is interested in taking a chance with you or who knows you, then that can work out. But that's through networking. But on a competitive basis, the chances of you getting something here are very low. There's another place that you may like to try, and that is in Borneo. Borneo has a good engineering program, and also Indonesia that has a good engineering program, and particularly from the applied perspective. Malaysia has another very good engineering program, but very applied. And so if you're good in application, these are the programs that you should be applying to. And if you email me, write more to me, I will communicate with you and see what we can do. Boris, anything to add?
Yeah, regarding the low GPA, it's also important in which courses you got bad grades. If your grades are bad consistently in key engineering courses, then that's a major issue, and your application will not be competitive. If your GPA is lower because you bombed one course, but your quantitative courses and all your key fundamental engineering courses are rock solid, then you have a better chance. So it's not just, people don't just look at the overall GPA, they'll also look at what courses have you done, how challenging are those courses. If there are electives, have you taken some advanced level courses as electives rather than some easy courses to beef up your GPA? So it's an overall package, so that needs to be looked at. But yes, overall low GPA without anything else, that would be the answer, that it won't be competitive. And regarding undergraduate students coming for research, as Farooq mentioned, a lot of times students who take our courses, they will come by and ask for research. But just like graduate students, they would come to me and ask for research, and they would also ask somebody else for research. So what I typically do is I give them something really out of the box, really challenging, something somewhat difficult beyond their course that they have done. If they are really sincere about doing research, they will come back to me after a couple of weeks and tell me that they are frustrated, or they have done some progress and they are stuck now, and now we are in business. But if this person just runs away because I've given them a difficult problem, I'm not interested in working with that person. Because if you are not going to take initiative, because research is self-motivated and self-driven. We just perform the task of being advisors, guiding you and pointing you in the right direction. So if somebody does that and comes back, then we start interacting. So
Thank you. I would like to call it quits in 5 minutes. So if there are further questions, we can do that. Otherwise, I can stop recording and we can go to the chit chat mode. So Tanvir, Rajan, Gideon, why was it worth your while to listen to us for 90 minutes?
Hi.
Yes.
Okay, so I have this passion to pursue PhD, and then I've been doing research about schools and also research about professors' publications and all that. So I thought it would be wise enough to listen from the experts and then know how to go about my applications to get a successful competitive package for the admission committee. So that is why I've been here all this while.
Thank you. Who's next? Who else would like to share?
Okay, so can I add something too?
Sure.
Okay, so with the lower GPA that he was talking about, I looked up on most of the universities, and their GPA is the minimum requirement is 3.0, of which I had some problems. So mine is 2.9, but then uh, I've done most of the courses, which is quite okay. So I don't know if I should still go ahead and then pursue the PhD, or I should just cut everything off, or I don't know right now.
At this stage, it's impossible for us to advise you. And the reason for that is because schools tell you the minimum is GPA. We are telling you how the professors deal with it. That's the school saying 3.0. But why would I pay for somebody with a 3.0 GPA if I can get somebody with a 3.5 GPA? So you're not likely to be competitive. So the way to go about it is to improve your GPA. One way to do it is to go for a master's at your own country, in your own place, improve your GPA. Or, as Boris has said, tell the story that, hey, look, I bombed the first year, I did very badly, that held it back. For the remainder of my 3 years or 4 years or whatever it is, my GPA is high. Okay, so you have to tell the story and explain it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would also like to share my experience of the meeting. First of all, like when I joined, I had received a link from an unknown person, and I had the expectation that I would not be able to be engaged in the seminar. But while the seminar is concluding, I'm really impressed by all the team, because whatever points have been covered are almost exactly what any student who's an applicant to a graduate degree program requires. And I can even elaborate it more, but I think this slide says it all. Thank you, all the team, and my special thanks to Professor Farooq.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so I'm going to stop recording. And so you now get into chit chat.